Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Retrobrighting, the Danish style. Now here in front of me, we're gonna retrobright all of this stuff here. And we're gonna do some really crazy tests. Like some of these parts here, they're gonna be retrobrighted inside for 2 days with UV lights. But the other parts are gonna go outside and be retrobrighted with the sunlight for 30 days. And this is to see which chemical works and doesn't work. So stay tuned. Now we're going to start with the Commodore 64 over here. And as you already can tell, it's really brown when it should be gray. It's missing a key and it's falling apart. But we're going to retrobright this. And we're going to use hydrogen peroxide and water. And we're going to do it inside for 2 days with UV lights. Now I got a hold of this special keyboard here. And it is also very yellow and brown. And this is perfect for our experiment that we're going to do. But we're going to come back here later. Now over here is my disk drive. I found out that I need another one, so I went on eBay and bought another one. And this is just as yellow as the other one. And this is perfect again for our experiment. But we're going to start with the keyboard. Here's the layout of the keyboard. Half of the keys will be in the sunlight for 30 days. And the other half will be in 2 days in UV lights. Number 1 will be the control keys, which means nothing's going to happen to them. Number 2 will be hydrogen peroxide with no water. Number 3 will be hydrogen peroxide with water. Number 4 will just be in the sunlight, nothing added to it. Number 5 will just be bleach with water. Number 6 will be turpentine. Yes, we're going to try to use turpentine. Number 7 will be hydrogen peroxide with water, but where it's going to be in this container where the keys are not going to touch the liquid. I want to see if the vapor does anything to it, like steam. And now we come to the 2 days in UV lights. And number 8 is hydrogen peroxide with no water. And number 9 will be hydrogen peroxide with water. And number 10 will just be UV lights, nothing added to it. Number 11 will be bleach with water. And number 12, turpentine. And number 13 is hydrogen peroxide with water, but this one's a little special. It's going to be with heat. And the reason is, most of the things I've been retrobrighting has been in room temperature. And we're going to try to use heat to it to see what it does. And number 14, we're going to use hydrogen peroxide with water in my refrigerator. That's right, we're going to see what happens when you put it in a cold environment. Now we're also going to retrobright these disk drives because I need something bigger than the small keyboard keys. And just like the keyboard keys, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to use the switch here as a control so we can see the difference. The front panel will be hydrogen peroxide with no water. And the bottom with nothing added to it. Now if we look down here in the bottom, we can see its original color. So I'm going to use this side instead, where it's mostly yellowed. And the top will be hydrogen peroxide with water. Now there's a lot here we need to retrobright. I don't think this is going to be enough. So I went out and bought 5 liters of Brentoilte, also known as hydrogen peroxide. Now, it is actually cheaper to buy the big one. Instead, you have to spend more money to buy 6 of these to match this. Now, before we start, I think it's important that we look at the bottles and see if there's any danger that we should be aware of for our protection and yours. It is important that we understand what the symbol means. This symbol here means that it acts like acid, so you need to wear some gloves so you don't damage your skin. It is one of the reasons why cleaning ladies always wear gloves, because they have to work with these chemicals every day at their job. Some chemicals are flammable, like this alcohol here. It is always a good idea to read and understand of how to use these chemicals. Some chemicals require you to wear a mask because of its fumes. Always have these chemicals out of reach from children so they can't reach them. Now that we know the danger, let's get started. I'm going to put these keys in these containers, which has numbers, so I know where they need to go when I put them back. Now I'm going to use a glue gun. I'm not going to put too much on it. This is just to make certain they don't float to the surface. And here I bought some cheap plexiglass. This lead came with the container, but I'm not going to use it because the sunlight will have a hard time getting through to it. Now I'm going to put a little glue on the bottom here. This is just to make certain they don't fall off because it can be a little windy. Now I can't see the numbers, so I'm just gonna write them here. And this is where the plexiglass comes in. And as we can see here, the sunlight can get through the plexiglass easily. 10 is just going to be in the UV lights, nothing added to it. And number 8 is only going to be hydrogen peroxide. 14 is the one that's going to be put in the refrigerator. I'm actually very excited to see the results. I'm just gonna add this ice box in the refrigerator in case that the LED lights is a little warm. I'm just gonna put some tape here. This is just in case it doesn't open up in the middle of the night. And number 13 is the one I'm going to heat up. I'm going to do it this way because it's just like warming up chocolate without burning it. After 2 hours, I came to check on it just to see how it was doing, but it appears the glue became too soft and detached itself. So I had to re-glue it back on and adjust the temperature so it doesn't happen again. And number 9 will be hydrogen peroxide with water. And number 12 is turpentine. And number 11, we're going to use bleach here. I just had a crazy idea. What if we take the restore key and put hydrogen peroxide and water and put it in a box where no lights can touch it and hide it and keep it in darkness for 2 days, like here. And I'm just gonna put my friend here to protect it. And now it's time to disassemble the disk drives. I wonder what's on this one. The disk drives are very old, so I did expect some dirt in them, but we're gonna clean it up. I always put screws in small bags so I know exactly where they belong and so I don't lose them. Now I have a special technique so it doesn't float to the surface. I'm going to use this plastic here and I'm going to cut it these 2 areas and form it to the shape I want. That way the sun hits right through it. And have this plexiglass on it so it doesn't float to the surface. I'm going to try to glue some rocks on it here to see if it works. A is going to be inside and B is going to be for outside. This one here is just going to be in the UV lights. And the front panel is going to be hydrogen peroxide. And this one is with water and hydrogen peroxide. And again, I'm going to use this special trick by using this plastic to hold it down to prevent it from floating to the surface. Now I have to find a place where I can put all of this stuff, and I got permission to use this place where the sun can shine on it as much as possible. This one here is going to be in the sunlight for 30 days. I'm going to come back tomorrow to see how they all are doing. As you've noticed, there's ropes around it. That is to make certain that the wind doesn't blow it off the table. Now I can tell that something is happening to the keys. I'm gonna come back again tomorrow and see if there's any changes. Now seeing the front panel, I can already tell that it has become really white, so it seems to be working. And the top panel also seems to be working, and it's only been outside for 2 days so far. Now the keys, that's a different story. Now, number 6 is turpentine, and it appears that it has disintegrated all the glue, so the keys are just lying there. Now bleach seems to be doing something, but we have to wait and see what happens at the end of the 30 days. And number 4, well, that's just in the sunlight. Number 3 is just hydrogen peroxide with water, and it seems to be doing okay so far. And number 2 seems to be doing a better job, and that's only hydrogen peroxide. In some days there's lots of sunlight, and some other days it has gray weather. Now pay attention to the water drops inside the container. I want you especially to notice number 5, this one here. The water drops here are huge. As Mr. Spock would say, fascinating. There are some days when I open up the box and stir it just to get it mixed. Unfortunately, all the rocks fell off. It appears the glue couldn't hold on to them. Now luckily, my special trick with the plastic here hold it down. And now it's time to look at the Commodore 64. Now looking inside of this Commodore here, I can tell what the color used to be before it turned into this brownish thing. Now we're gonna clean it up first to make certain we get all the dirt off before we retrobright it. Now I didn't know how else to do this, so I'm using this radiator to heat up the water for 2 days. But I'm going to put this metal plate here so it doesn't melt the plastic. I'm gonna add some hot water already to get it started, and the hydrogen peroxide to mix it with water. And we're just gonna leave it here for 2 days, also as 48 hours. At first glance, I could already tell it has become very white. Now let's see how much has changed. Well, that turned really white in some way. It might look great now, but it's not supposed to look like this. It is because it has decomposed so much that the brown became too white. The 30 days are now up, and here's a list of how the weather has been for the last 30 days. Now let's take a look at them. Now they are a little hard to see, but we're going to take them inside to see the results. Now let's take a look at the one that's been sitting in the sunlight with nothing added to it. Now at first glance, it looks like not much has happened to it. Well, we have to see when we get inside. I think we all can see which one has won this battle. Now both of them look fine to me. Now let's check them and see the comparison, if anything has changed. Well, I can't see much has happened here. Now both of the tops seems to be fine too, but we can all see which one is the widest. Now the ones that has been outside for 30 days seems to have done a better job. And now let's see the results of the keys. Well, we can already see what the difference is here. Let's look at the list again and see what we used. Now I can tell that 13 is the winner here, and these keys were the ones that were inside with heat. Now the one that was inside the refrigerator only got half of the job done. And the second is these here. It's number 2, which was outside for 30 days with hydrogen peroxide. And then there's number 15, the restore key. No changes there. Still the same brown key, so that doesn't work. Now the bleach you can see, well, all the letters have faded away, but it has gotten half of the job done. Turpentine hasn't done much, but it has gotten some of the color back. And then there's number 7, steam hydrogen peroxide, which did an okay job, but I should have added some heat to it, so there would have been more steam. This is one I'm gonna come back to one day. Well, all that's left to do now is wait for 1 year to see if any of this will slowly turn back to this yellow brownish stuff and see which is the best way to retrobright. So, we'll wait. Okay, I'll go make more episodes while we wait. Wow, it's already been a year. Time sure does fly, doesn't it? Well, let's take a look and see if there's a difference after waiting a year. Well, as we can see, very little has changed here. But 9 and 8 and 7 has slightly changed, a little yellowed. Well, one thing is certain, the winner is still number 2 and 13. So, hydrogen peroxide and UV lights and heat is clearly what needs to be done. And what about the Commodore 64? Well, as we can see here, very little has changed, and that is thanks to the heat. Now, I have another Commodore 64, and this is what it's supposed to look like. And as you can see, they are not the same. And that is because the plastic is too far gone, like decompose, which is why it became more white. Yes. And here is the Amiga 600 keyboard from last year. You know, the one with the golden Amiga I made. And I can see it from my own eyes that it has turned just a little yellowed. And again, I used room temperature when I should have put heat to the element and just a little more hydrogen peroxide. These keys would have been completely white. So now we know. And now I want to show you something a little different. This is styrofoam, or as we say in Danish, flamingoplade. And I've had this thing up in the window for over 10 years. And you can already tell where the white lines are, but just look how yellow these things are. And that is the damage the sun has done to this. But if I put my finger here, and this is the damage the sun does over a long period of time. So remember to wear some sunscreen in the summertime. So why does heat work and cold doesn't? Well, as we all know, heat expands and cold contracts. Now you don't need to have them outside for 30 days like I did. You just need to have them outside for 2 days, and good sun condition and some heat is more than enough. Now my UV lights here, they're not as powerful as other products out there. The other ones out there, they're bigger and more powerful than the lights, and they can cover a larger area on the surface, where this one can only cover a small area. It's one of the reasons why I got 4 of them. So I have 1, 2, 3, and I probably need to have them run for 2 days. Now those other products may do a better job, but you have to remember they're more expensive, and these here, they're cheaper and they do get the job done. But now comes a very important question. Should we retrobright our things here and try to get its original color back as we remember it from the past? Or should we gracefully let it age as we do to remind us of our immortality? Now, if you're interested, I have some extra bonus material that didn't make it to this episode, but you can only get access to that on my Patreon page, where you get to see some things behind the scenes, and there might even be a chance for you to be part of one of my episodes, and much, much more. Oh, I almost forgot. What about the VIC-20? Well, it's right here. From the looks of it, I can tell that it has turned just a little yellowed. And again, I use room temperature when I should have applied heat to it. But hey, it still looks good to me. Now, believe it or not, we're not finished with retrobrighting. We're actually going to do a part 3 on this subject. Because you see, I realized there was something I needed to be retrobrighted, and it requires extra care. And I needed to do it in a way that doesn't damage it or its components. And here's a clue of what we're going to be working on. And that is all the time we have left for this episode. So I hope to see you soon again on the next episode. I'll see you there.